Coming to you from the Congress Centre in Davos, Switzerland, the World Economic Forum is in full session. I've got Rolf Mupita, the CEO of MTN Group, with me right now. Rolf, thank you so much for your time. First question is, what has stood out for you over the couple of days that you've been here at the forum?
Yeah, there's been a lot that's been going on. Largely been in bilateral meetings. Probably spent about 80% of my time in meeting, suppliers and partners. But I'll say that there's three things that I'm taking back certainly as I think about Davos so far. Firstly, is that on the global outlook, possibly that in developed markets, it's going to be either a shallower recession, and some markets might actually avoid recession. That seems more probable now than it did a quarter ago. But that's a developed world framework. When you look at developing markets such as the ones we operate in, I think we are in for at least another 12, possibly 24 months of challenge. Many markets are fiscally challenged. They have to go to the IMF for support. You've seen Egypt, you've seen Zambia, you've seen Ghana, etc. So I think the markets that we operate in, I think the key message I'm taking is that potentially more challenge. The second point is really around globalization. There had been a narrative that we are in a deglobalizing world. I think globalization is here. It's just a form of it that's changing. It's a much more diversified and resilient form of globalization that is being talked about. And the final point, technology. Obviously, as MTN, we're in the tech space and really been interested in the discussions around satellite and space, the space economy. And for us as MTN, how do we think about operating with terrestrial assets as well as space assets, and then artificial intelligence? What's going on around that?
Well, let's just start with the emerging market outlook, because I've also attended a lot of sessions, and pretty much that 24-month tough period, it looks as though that's what's ahead of us. How do you structure your business from an MTN perspective with the many different geographies you operate in across the continent to withstand, or are you defensive by nature?
No, we're not defensive. We can't say we're defensive. I mean, we are relatively more resilient as a sector. The demand for telecommunication continues to structurally be on the growth cycle. We're still seeing, mid-teen service revenue growth. Smartphone penetration across our markets about 56%. So there's a lot of our customers who still are not accessing the internet, and a lot more of the markets we're operating are realizing that part of the way out of the challenges is to build a digital economy. So we have relatively more resilience. We're not completely unaffected. Inflation is impacting us. So how do we think about pricing of our products when there is inflation? Yes, it's not possible for us to absorb all the inflation. We're always bringing costs down. So we are thinking about, how do we manage inflation sustainably? We have to pass some of that to customers, unfortunately, to sustain the investment. So being very capital disciplined, we're really thinking about which decisions or opportunities deserve capital, and which ones do we simply not allocate any capital to. So we're still growth oriented. We're pushing for growth, but it's a disciplined form of capital allocation in an environment where it could be quite challenging.
We need to talk about Nigeria, election 23rd of February of this year. You must have been paying close attention to what is happening from a political perspective in Nigeria.
No, we always watch the political economy issues because they always ultimately get into the economy and affect the way we, as a corporate, we are apolitical by nature. Our focus is to deliver, to shareholders and broader stakeholders. But it's been peaceful so far. And that's a positive. And in the next couple of weeks, the elections will come through. And we're very focused right now on continuing the investment in the business in Nigeria. We spend $2 billion of capex annually. A third of that is in Nigeria. So the Nigerian team, Carl team, are busy, focused on accelerating 4G and 5G. So we are focused on our ground game, but obviously monitoring the political development. But so far, it's been very peaceful.
You also mentioned technology. Obviously, you've been looking at trends that prevail here at the World Economic Forum to see what may shape the future. Is there anything right now that is groundbreaking, that has changed the way you look at your business from a technology perspective?
I'm pretty, interested and focused, and I'm pushing my team to, take that interest as well. Is to say, in 4 to 5 years' time, how should communication be? I mean, communication should always be on, and there should never be an instance where you don't have connectivity. So the interaction of subsea cable, terrestrial networks, and space low Earth orbit satellites, I think the next 4 to 5 years is going to be a very interesting space, how that all sits together and is arranged to give people like you and I and people in the rural areas a completely uninterrupted experience. Right now in South Africa we are facing load shedding, and the network is out for a huge part of the time. But I think in the future, when the networks terrestrially and in space are well arranged, if your phone is not able to attach to a terrestrial network, like an MTN network, I hope you're an MTN network, you should be able to attach to a low Earth orbit satellite constellation that keeps you connected. So that's space we're watching very, very closely as MTN. And, it's very early days yet, but I think the future of telecommunication is an always-on network, leveraging the assets subsea, terrestrial, and in space.
So as an aside, I do have an OA3 number. But Rolf, one of the issues that we're receiving from our coverage here at the World Economic Forum, and it's happening across the board, is that there is a general feeling in South Africa that the delegation is far too optimistic and that we are blind to the realities of South Africa. Perhaps you can help me on that in terms of what do you say to South Africa, because the comments that we've been receiving are hard in terms of saying, sort of what world are you living in?
No, look, I'm not living in a fairy tale world around South Africa. South Africa, we are in a real energy crisis. Because if Eskom and the power availability situation remains as is, it will bring down economic growth, more people go into poverty. So I'm putting no lipstick on a gorilla on this matter. I mean, we certainly, and we feel it running networks. In a normal situation, we expect our networks to be 99.75% available at all times, everywhere, whether you are in the Eastern Cape, you're in Limpopo, wherever. But we're battling today, at stage 6 to even have 90%. We're sub 90 at that level because, as much as we're putting batteries in and diesel generators, they're also being vandalized. So we don't only have a power situation issue, we have a vandalism issue as well. So I always say that the first thing is to acknowledge that you have a problem. And I think as South Africans, we should say we have a problem. And, we have 48,000 megawatts of installed capacity. There's a lot of that installed capacity. What is our plan? 5 points. We need to be able to tell people 5 points. And that articulation, we haven't been, to be honest, good at that. But, not to be the one who's always complaining, but, solutions are there. We are doing our bit to make our network more resilient. We're actually investing more capex now because of that. Batteries, generators, etc. But we also are looking at renewables. But that's not going to solve our problem in the next 12 months. That's a 5-year, 10-year problem. So, yeah, we're not selling, I'm not interacting with the colleagues I meet from internationally and saying everything is hunky-dory in South Africa. I am saying we have challenges, but, South Africa, we have the resources, the capability, the people to get ourselves. And it's going to require government, private sector, and civil society for us to say, in areas, everybody's going to make some sacrifice, but we do need to, I think in the next 12 to 18 months, we really need to break the back of the Eskom problem.
Artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. Again, people are swearing at me when I mention ChatGPT. Are you going to do the same?
I'm not going to swear at you. I mean, it's an interesting technology, and we're watching it. And, if you and I were back at school, we would be having our essay written by ChatGPT. So, look, I mean, after this, I'm actually going to see the team at Microsoft from this interview. We'll be interested to see what they're thinking about. There's a lot of, market commentary that Microsoft is looking to acquire OpenAI, and they say there's scope to integrate that into, their Azure cloud, proposition. So we'll see. But interesting developments around AI. Lots of sessions here around that.
Well, I don't want to make you late for your Microsoft meeting, and you've been incredibly generous with your time. So, Ralph, thank you very much, and I hope that the rest of the forum is really significant for you.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
So I've been chatting to Ralph Mupita. He's the CEO of MTN Group, and as you hear from the man himself, communication is about always on, 100% of the time. This is Bronwyn Nielsen coming to you from the World Economic Forum here in Davos, Switzerland, reporting for BizNews, the Nielsen Network, and of course, Brand South Africa.